Neil Sean blazing, Journey, Stone in Love, Cape Boy 105.9, the Big Kahuna, Honolulu's only classic rock, and Dave Lawrence with you, 306. We're doing our Friday together, and a very special one because I'm joined in the studio by a cat, a very famous cat, who's going to be performing with Starship tonight and tomorrow, 8 o'clock shows at the 50th State Fair. It is my pleasure to welcome for the first time ever as a guest on my show, the great Mickey Thomas. Aloha, Mickey.
Hey, Dave. Thank you, man.
You're quite welcome. It's an honor to have you here. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, you betcha.
And how much, I always like to, when I get a chance to have an artist like yourself in the studio, I always wonder, like, what is the background of Hawaii experience that you have? Like, how many times have you come and done gigs and stuff?
Oh, God. Well, not enough. Not as much as I'd like to. But a few times. It's been a while, though. You know, the last time we were here, I'm thinking it's got to be 12 years ago, at least.
Damn.
And maybe on Maui a little bit, you know, after that. Not quite so long for Maui, but I've probably performed in the islands half a dozen times maybe.
Okay.
Over, 25 years. But like I said, it's not nearly enough. But I do remember the first time we played here, and it was at the Crater Festival,
Nice.
like 1976, I think. And that was when I was with Elvin Bishop Band. And Journey played with us before Steve Perry was even in the band.
Nice.
Then, yeah, so that was the
Greg
first
Raleigh led.
Yeah, Greg and Ainsley Dunbar,
Monster
who later
drummer.
went on, to join the Starship the
Yes.
same time I did. So a lot of memories. Famous Ken Rosine, who used to promote all the shows over here, did a lot of shows with us back then. A great guy who is no longer with us, and
Sadly so.
yeah.
You have a good memory. I'm impressed. I'm sure listeners will dig that. You're dropping all kinds of stuff from people's memories.
Yeah.
And how about like vacation time? Have you made it out here just to hang and not gigged?
Yeah.
And what's your favorite place?
I love all the islands. Each one has its own personality and something special to offer. I guess I should say the island that we're on right now. But in all honesty, I think Maui's my favorite.
Really? Cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, man. It's a very special place, and I think most artists would say they don't get here enough to do gigs.
Oh gosh, no. It's just so great being here. It's such a unique place. Just out here, kind of stuck out in the middle of this gigantic body of water, all by itself, isolated from everything. I don't. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to live here, because you might get a sense of sort of isolation after a while, but no, you don't, right? I still feel. I can tell that.
I still feel. I could hear where someone might. I still have like all my friends and stuff from Boston and New York and LA, and they keep me. Thankfully, knock on wood, they keep me very plugged in.
Yeah.
But there probably could be an element. I think that it's like a scale, because then there's another side of the scale, which is the surroundings, the temperature, and the vibe. The aloha, which is a very special part.
And
of
then
it.
the internet has made the world a much smaller place too, as far as being able to, keep in touch and communicate with your friends and keep abreast of everything that's going on. It's
keeping abreast.
Yeah,
one of my favorite things. So Elvin Jones. Before we talk, Elvin Bishop.
Yeah.
There is a thing that I was reading about you that I thought was kind of cool. A lot of artists, when they're young, get influenced by going to a show, and the one that you went to that influenced you is like the show to get to go and see. And I just wanted to, because your memory is really good, so we'll get to find out where and when this was. You saw the Beatles when you were very young.
I did. I was 15 years old, and I saw the Beatles. I think it was 1966, Atlanta Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in Georgia, so I was a South Georgia boy, and they played Atlanta, and I wasn't even driving yet. And I told my parents, I said, I've got to do this. I've got to go see the Beatles. So you can either give me your permission to go, or else I'll just run away and go anyway. Because one way or another, I'm going, And so my friends and I, a real close-knit group of friends, the five of us got on a bus and went up to Atlanta and saw the Beatles. And that was when we decided that, okay, as soon as we get back home next week, we're starting a band. That's it. This is cool, And it was quite an experience, The sound systems were terrible back then, and the girls were all screaming, so you couldn't really hear much anyway. But the experience was one that I'm really thankful I got to enjoy that.
And that is a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Yeah.
You get to have said you saw the Beatles. And that's back when shows, they were doing them on the field of the ballpark, but people weren't allowed onto the field or something, right? So everyone's up in the stands, and the band is removed from the audience.
Yeah, it was in the baseball park, and the stage was kind of set up around about where second base would be, probably. And then we were just all in the stands, like you were there for a baseball game or something. So there was quite a separation between the audience and the band. And like I said, the sound system, a lot of it was just the regular PA system in the stadium.
For the ballpark.
But to enhance that, then they had these gigantic drivers that had no speaker cabinets around them or anything, just these gigantic exposed horns, kind of on each corner of the stage, you know. Just so it was pretty treble. It was worse than your AM car radio, you know, back in those days. So, and there were rumors that the Beatles were going to come in by helicopter, and there were helicopters and planes circling all around the stadium right before it was tight. You know, the big moment was
a lot of anticipation.
So, yeah, and so everybody's eyes are kind of glued skyward, you know, expecting this helicopter to land in the middle of the baseball field, and all of a sudden the Beatles just come sauntering out of the dugout, you know, single file, one after another, you know, casual, waving to the crowd, and it was really something.
You got a great memory. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like your memories are the kind that when people listen to them, they can sort of place themselves there. I dig that. And a lot of people, the thing that when I said you were going to be on the show the other day, folks were saying, and I said, yeah, he's the dude who did Fooled Around and Fell in Love for Elvin Bishop. And people were like, I didn't, you know, a lot of people don't know that. They don't associate you with that. Where was, how did you first get hooked up with him? Yeah,
a lot of people still don't know that. And people, I think my peers, a lot of people in the business know that, and because of that song, you know, a lot of doors opened up for me. But a lot of listeners don't realize that I was the vocalist on that. But I met Elvin the first time I came to California. I came in the early '70s, and I sang with a black gospel singer, a guy named Gideon Daniels, for about a year in the San Francisco area. And he probably more than anyone else was my mentor. He taught me, you know, how to sing and how to develop a style, and so because a lot of my style is rooted in black gospel music. So, and he was good friends with Elvin Bishop. So I met Elvin through Gideon, and then when Elvin signed with Capricorn Records, which was based in Macon, Georgia, he came down there to record some, you know, his first 3 albums for Capricorn he did down in Macon, and I'd since moved back to Georgia. So I ended up doing some background vocal work in the studio with him. Whenever he'd come into town, he'd call me, and I'd come up to Macon and sing a little bit, and eventually he just invited me to join the band. And so in '75, I joined the Elvin Bishop Band and moved back to San Francisco.
Nice.
And then the first album that I did with Elvin as a member of the band was Strutting My Stuff, which contained the single, or what ultimately became the single, Fooled Around and Fell in Love. We did it in Miami at the old Criteria recording studio.
Famous place.
There. Yeah. And one other tidbit is the piano that we used on that was the famous piano that Layla was recorded on at Criteria.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
damn, I never knew that. Yeah. That's a great story.
Yeah, there was a lot of good music made at that studio. It's no longer there now, but, you know, Derek and the Dominoes and the Allman Brothers, you know, did a lot of stuff there. And
that's a great thing.
Cool. Plus, it was fun to go to Miami.
Another warm place to hang out. It's a cool town. Let's play that one, Fooled Around and Fell in Love, Elvin Bishop. Is this one that people will hear when they go and see you?
Yeah, we're still doing it. It's still one of my favorite songs to sing over the years. I still get a kick out of this one. It's as fresh as it ever was.
Ah, you're an animal. Thank you so much for letting me play it for you here. This is Mickey Thomas singing with Elvin Bishop, Fooled Around and Fell in Love. K-Boy 105.9, The Big Kahuna. Elvin Bishop on K-Boy 105.9, The Big Kahuna, Honolulu's only classic rock, and Mickey Thomas singing there, the voice of Starship. He is tonight and tomorrow, 8 p.m. at the 50th State Fair. And again, big mahalo for coming down, brother.
Thank you, man.
Nice to have you here. And we were talking while that was playing. It's sort of doing the gig with Elvin, and that tune really was sort of what led to your gig with Jefferson Starship.
Yeah, because I spent 3 years with the Elvin Bishop Band. You know, we did 3 albums, and we toured a lot. That was a hard-working band, a lot of nights on the road. But it was a great experience and a fantastic band. You know, I learned so much from being in that band. But then I originally left the Elvin Bishop Band in 1979 to pursue a solo album was really what I was planning on doing. I had already gotten the deal worked out and was getting ready to go back to Miami to do that one when I was approached, by the Jefferson Starship about possibly singing with them. At that point in time, Grace Slick and Marty Ballin had both left the band, and the drummer John Barbada had been badly injured in a car crash. So it was really
Paul was still in the band, though, right?
But there was a real question about whether the Jefferson Starship would even try to continue or just call it quits at that time, or guys would start new bands or whatever. So they decided, Paul and Pete Sears, who we were just talking about, and Craig and David Freiberg decided that they wanted to continue on. And so Ainsley Dunbar and myself joined the Jefferson Starship at the same time, roughly, within a couple of weeks of each other. And but it was, obviously the big thing, that my calling card that got me into that was Fooled Around and Fell in Love. And then I decided to join the band, and because I was coming in and Ainsley was coming in, and they really wanted to pursue a different musical direction at that point in time, kind of a harder, rockier, big rock edge, in the 79, 80. It felt almost like a new band, really.
It sounded like one, I think, to a lot of fans.
Yeah. And that had a lot to do with our album title. The first album I did was called Freedom at Point Zero. Yep. And Point Zero is, kind of symbolic of starting all over again from scratch. And then the first song that I rehearsed with the band was Jane. And the first song that we recorded when we went in the studio was Jane. And then, of course, that became the first single. And
has endured as a monster. It
kind of got us off to a nice start.
It sure did. That was a great way to get us started, I was going to say. And another thing that I think is a parallel with that in terms of a great start, and I could be wrong about this, but I always seem to remember your debut gig with the Jefferson Starship, a free concert in Golden Gate Park.
A Mother's Day.
Wow.
1979.
And that was like one of those 50, 60,000 people kind of deals showing up?
Yeah, and they one of the hooks for that was they made these little mini Frisbees, about yay big, and they were throwing them out and handing them out to everybody who came to the park, and I still have one of those because it was kind of my little token of my first gig with the band, and it says on it, Jefferson Starship, free concert, Golden Gate Park, May 10th, whatever the date was, 1979.
You got a great memory.
I still got one of those.
That's cool. That's a good souvenir. I'd want one too. And another early one, right around the same era, was the benefit for the people of Kampuchea.
Yeah.
And that was a gig that saw you guys. That was the Oakland Stadium. Was that the big outdoor, or was that an indoor?
That was indoors at the Coliseum.
Okay.
The Dead were
and the Beach
in
Boys.
That one too, and the Beach Boys. Yeah.
That's cool.
Joan Baez. That was.
Had you ever worked with the Dead before, or been up close with them?
No, I believe that was the first time. I remember in 1969, when I was still living in South Georgia, I went to a free concert in the park in Atlanta, Georgia, Atlanta and Piedmont Park. And I'll never forget that one because it was a free concert, and the bands that were on it were Delaney and Bonnie and Friends with Eric Clapton.
Wow.
Spirit.
Wow, yeah.
Chicago, which was their first national tour, and the Dead.
On one bill for free.
Yeah.
How did things like that get paid? I mean,
I don't know. It was a different world then.
It sure was. Because I just started looking at the economics of it. I'm like,
well, I think what it was it was right after the first Atlanta Pop Festival.
Okay, all right.
Which was a 3 or 4 day festival.
Zeppelin was at that and stuff.
Yeah, that was one of Zeppelin's first U.S. dates, I think. And so I think those bands just decided to stay over for an extra day and just all get together and do some free music in the park.
Wow. So it was within days of the Atlanta Pop Festival.
Uh-huh.
With Jimmy had done that gig too, right?
And then he did the next one too. The second one, and I think there were only two of them. The first and the second one. The second one in 1970, I was at that one. And
the Almonds, right? And there wasn't the Almonds at that one too.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's good stuff, man.
Sly and the Family Stone.
Oh yeah. So you would stay like a fan and just watch all this stuff.
I was in the audience. It was.
Damn, that's what's cool, man. When you're in bands and you still have that appreciation. I just had we were talking before you went on. Carmine Apiece is a friend of mine, and he said yesterday to definitely say aloha to you.
Hey, tell him I said hi, man. And he's a great guy, and he's done so many things in his career.
Very diverse career that he's had. Worked with everyone, and I mention that right now because he's doing this tour with the Doors and Yardbirds and Steppenwolf and the Fudge and Pat Travers and all these bands. And yesterday he was giving me the first report from the road, and it was very much like, you know, everyone stands around watching other people play and really caring about seeing the other artists and getting into it. So I can just imagine you standing there at the People for Kampuchea thing. Like, were you just standing on the side of stage watching the Dead and stuff?
Yeah.
And you had all access, so you could be right up close to them.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Cool. Did you get to personally meet it? Like, were you introduced to them and stuff?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was Jerry like?
Very friendly, very warm guy, real down-to-earth person.
How much Jerry time in your life did you get to have?
Not a lot. Phil Lesh, probably more time with than Jerry, and Bob Weir more than any other. Yeah, we would cross paths, you know, like a lot of different Bay Area functions, the BAMI Awards and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, speaking of that, though, I do this thing sometimes. Sometimes we call it Starship and Friends, or sometimes we call it Voices of Classic Rock. We do this thing, and it's Starship. It's kind of like the house band. I was kind of inspired by this because, again, when I was a kid, sometimes you'd go and see these, like, soul shows and stuff.
With one band.
With soul music, there'd be one band with, like, 5 or 6 singers. And the band would stay the same, and then one singer would come out and do 3, 4, 5 songs and boom, up the stage, and the next singer was out. And it was very exciting, and it was fast-paced and real fast-moving, and so I kind of took that concept and got a bunch of my friends who are singers from all these different bands to come and it's mostly a corporate thing because it's hard to kind of do this publicly because everybody's got their own bands going on. But actually, over on Maui, we've done this a couple of times, but it's the same kind of deal. We'll get like Mike Reno from Loverboy and Bobby Kimball from Toto and Jimmy Jameson from Survivor and John Cafferty. And when we first started doing it, I'd find myself like when one of them would come on stage, I'd run out front in the audience and go like, wow, because I wanted to hear this
and watch the show yourself.
Yeah. And then sometimes we'd all be on stage, you know, all singing background vocals, you know, for one of the other singers, and it was just like. That's very, very cool.
I've read about that. When you say Voices of Classic Rock, I seem to recall that.
Pat Travers did a couple of them with us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And that's right. We were talking earlier. You're tight with him, too. You know, Pat's the man. He's been on the show a bunch, too, with Carmine. And in that San Francisco scene, I'd be remiss if I didn't get a story out of you about the ultimate, the king of concerts, the late, great Bill Graham. How much interaction did you get to have with him?
Not a whole lot, you know, but I just remember...
I know he could be a tough customer.
Yeah, he could be a tough customer.
It seems like that's the first image that came to your mind.
Well, everybody's always got the stories about, you know, if a gate crasher or somebody would try to get backstage, and then he would like chase them, not just out of the building, but chase them down the street until he caught them. And, you know, he'd run like 6 or 8 city blocks to personally catch the person and bring them to justice, you know, because, you know, that's just how strong he felt. But I think the thing that he said to me once that really stuck in my mind, you know, when you do this for a long time, hopefully you pick up these little tidbits of wisdom that you can apply. And it was, he said that he was talking about managing somebody, and he said he wanted 20%. And somebody said, well, you know, the going rate is like 15%, you know, so why should we give you 20? And he's going like, the question is not what the percent is, but a percentage of what? In other words, he's like, you might pay somebody else 15%, but if you pay me 20%, I'm going to make you a lot more money.
Right? Yeah. Of the big money that he's cutting his percentage.
It's a percentage of what?
That's a great way. That's a Bill kind of attitude too, for sure. And of the people from, you know, like we had earlier, we talked about Grace and how the band sort of took an evolution, and a lot of faces moved out of the band and have segued some of them out of even being in the rock industry, like Grace Slick, who's now retired. She does paintings and stuff like that. Do you guys have any kind of rapport? Do you still talk? Or
you know, I saw her about 2 months ago. You know, I just recently moved down to the Palm Springs area. I live in Rancho Mirage, California now, and she lives in Malibu. And she had come over to Rancho Mirage at one of the local galleries to display her art. And it was one of these things where, you know, come down and meet the artist and say hello to Grace Slick. And I hadn't talked to her in a while, so I thought, I'm just going to show up, go down. And I did, and it was great seeing her, you know. She's looking great and seems to be really happy. You know, she's stopped dyeing her hair, so her hair is all white, but she looks fantastic. You know, she has 0 wrinkles. I don't know how she does it, but
good for her.
Yeah, and she's really happy with just her art and painting now, and not really interested in doing anything musically, I don't think. But,
Yeah.
But Grace and we just got along great, you know, for pretty much the whole decade of the 80s, you know. I did 2 albums with the Jefferson Starship, and then Grace rejoined the band in 1982. So we were together from like 82 to 89, and
a lot of time.
Well, we had a great time together.
Yeah,
she's real funny, real intelligent, you know, very well read, and very forceful personality, obviously.
Big time.
But you know, most of my experience with her was after her real crazy, you know, drug and alcohol days. She was pretty much had been through all that and was clean and sober through most of my experience with her. So I got to see all of the good sides of Grace.
A different era too of her than that first era when she was really radical. And Paul Kantner, any rapport still with Paul? Do you get to talk to him at all?
No, no.
You guys both do your own thing, sort of. He's out with a
he kind of does the
airplane side of it.
The airplane side of it, which is more like the airplane in the earlier 70s, and then I do kind of the late 70s.
Have you seen that band that he's got? With that chick, Diane Mangano,
no,
or whatever?
I haven't.
You've heard of her, though. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
she's
but
good.
I haven't seen them. I heard that she was good.
Yeah, it's wild. You like if you turn your head and you're not looking at her and you listen, you're like, man, this is sounds just like Grace. And you turn around and then you see her, and she's a very attractive woman too. She just looks very different than Grace. And so that's interesting. So no no relationship with Paul at this point.
Not really. You know, we you know, when he split the band, it wasn't always on the best of terms, you know.
Sure.
But we've had a few meetings since then, and like you said, we decided like, hey, you know, this band has been through one form or another has been around for so long, and has been through so many changes and evolutions and musical changes in musical direction and changes in personnel that, you know, there's more than enough room for both of us to go out there and do our separate things, you know.
Oh, nice.
And there's an audience for
so you have an understanding.
I think, oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's happening. And before we wrap it up, you were telling me what's the latest record? You had like some cool guests and stuff on it?
I did a thing called Over the Edge, which came out late last year, and Neil Sean and Jack Blades wrote a couple of songs for it, and Neil plays on it, and Steve Lukather from Toto plays on it. And
nice.
Jonathan Cain wrote a song for us, and just a lot of cool players, great players. It's kind of classic rock with a bit of a modern edge.
Can people find that in stores?
Yeah.
And it's under, what's it under?
It's called Over the Edge.
So they'd look under what?
Featuring Mickey Thomas.
So you'd go under like Mickey Thomas in the...
Hopefully you'd find it there.
In that section.
You know, I think that might have been part of the problem. I didn't bill it correctly.
Because I was wondering where to find it too. And is there a website that people can stay up to date with you on?
Oh yeah, just MickeyThomas.com.
Excellent. That's a great
we try to keep that one pretty up to date, and it tells, you know, you can see where we're playing, and we'll have photos on there, and all the dates, and there's some video and audio stuff you can look at and listen to.
Nice.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
He is tonight and tomorrow, 8 p.m. shows at the 50th State Fair, and a pleasure to have Starship's Mickey Thomas as my guest here on KPOY 1059. Thank you very much for coming down.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's awesome to have you here, and we'll send you out with, would you say, besides We Built the City, this is probably the biggest hit?
Well, which one are we going to play? Well, you know, like I said, Jane's very special for me because it was like the first song I rehearsed with the band, the first song we recorded, the first single, and it came out of the box real strong. So, you know, Jane, and We Built This City, and Sarah, and Nothing's Going to Stop Us Now were all probably equally big
ones. Yeah, this one's had a real enduring quality with classic rock.
Yeah,
and it's awesome to play it for you, and they'll hear it tonight, right?
You betcha.
Awesome. Take care, Mickey. Have a great gig.
Thanks, Dave.
Jefferson Starship, Jane, KPOY 1059, The Big Kahuna.
Aloha, this is Mickey Thomas from Starship, and whenever I can, I listen to my buddy Dave Lawrence. Aloha, Dave.